And good morning, and welcome to another Super Galactic Saturday, June 8th, 2024. I am Jerry Sr. with Jerry Jr.,
Good morning.
and it's a wonderful Saturday morning. It's a beautiful day. Even though it's still overcast a little bit, it's still a beautiful day because any day above ground is a good day. So,
Yeah.
um, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. If you're not here with our live, thanks for watching after the fact and checking it out. We appreciate it. We appreciate any support we get. And welcome. So, yeah, this morning, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on in, the webosphere, the social media sphere,
Oh boy.
the entertainment industry. you know, before we went live, I brought up like things we could talk about. And, Jerry reminded me that we talked kind of touched on it already last week, the acolyte show, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, we did, that's right, and but it's like it's since been released, right? The first I guess few episodes or whatever. And the comments are rolling in on social media.
Did you watch? Did you
i
watch
didn't
the?
I don't have Disney, so I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
watched it. So
Yeah, I
I'm
saw
all I've
somebody.
seen all I've seen is the clip of I've seen the poster, I've seen the trailer, and I've seen the clip from I guess it's the first episode of one of the main characters putting out a fire in space on a spaceship. So, and I know
Oh
that's
yeah.
been a target of derision.
Okay, so here's the thing. All right, so two things. All right, one, Star Wars is not science fiction, and I say that in the sense that it's not science fiction like it is Star Trek. That's kind of why there's been a historic beef between it, right? It is
Right.
space fantasy.
It is.
So I don't expect it to hold to very like hard science rules, right?
Well, I vehemently disagree with that.
As a Robotech Macross fan, all right,
Well, yeah,
Dan, listen, because I went to go watch. This is a little, but it's still related because I went to go. I'm a Macross fan, right? Love Macross, right?
yes, yes,
Is it sci-fi? In some
yeah,
ways,
yeah.
on
It is
one
such.
hand, yes. On the other hand, they defeat the aliens with singing, and on the other foot,
Yeah.
there's a scene where Rick Hunter, or I always forget his Japanese name because I'm a dumb American, but and Minmay are lost on the giant ship, and they're hungry, and so Rick finds a frozen fish that got accidentally teleported into space. So what does he do? Oh, let me put a scarf around my Air Force pilot helmet to not seep out the air in space. So let me tie
Well,
up all the
well,
loose
to
ends
be
on my
fair,
clothes.
he didn't have duct tape, so you had to use the scarf. Right?
Uh, so that's the thing. It doesn't ruin the dismissal of hard science. Doesn't ruin this wouldn't ruin the show for
No,
me.
I
But
agree.
what I've seen though,
That alone isn't going to ruin an entire
yeah.
series or an entire movie. I agree. And to be fair, and I would say this. All right, the problem isn't that just that. That's just the fact that it's already kind of bad is what gives fuel to that criticism, right?
Well, my thing is that it's from what I've seen from clips and what I've read from the reviews is that the characters are just kind of a lot of the psych are just kind of bland. Like none of the characters really like. It's just kind of bland. Like
Yeah,
even from
it's
watching the clips that I've seen, there's no characters that really like stand out as interesting outside of
well,
fulfilling
yeah,
their tropes.
yeah. That's definitely some criticism I've heard with some reviews. Um, but it's also the fact that, like, just talking about that particular thing, right? It's like, yeah, you can say in Star Wars, or just in certain types of sci-fi like Star Wars, fantasy, sci-fi fantasy. Yeah, the rules of science are dismissed, but that presumes that the rules of science are not dismissed in other, science fiction, uh, movies, etc. Like Battlestar Galactica, they had battles in space, right, with the
Yeah.
space jets.
Hmm.
Well, that's not really a scientifically plausible activity, right?
Right.
Like Robotech, it's like you wouldn't have these jets with individuals flying around having dogfights, right, in space.
Sure,
You would
but they
have
already
giant.
established that these are a new kind of jets.
That
Like
doesn't
it's in
matter.
the
Scientifically speaking, it's just not plausible or possible, regardless of
yeah.
saying there are certain, all I'm saying is that even in what's maybe considered more a hard science fiction compared to Star Wars, you still get a dismissal of scientific plausibility.
Oh yeah,
It has
yeah,
to be. That's kind of the point of science fiction. That's why it's
yeah.
called science fiction, right? So, yeah, it's to be expected that you're going to dismiss certain things that are not necessarily plausible or even possible. I mean, because if you had to go by hard science with science fiction all the time, then you wouldn't have science speculation, right? You wouldn't have speculative fiction that talks about what the future is going to be like with hover cars or jetpacks or, right? It's like, because at the times that many of these things were conceptualized, those things weren't possible. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I get that. But the issue with the fire in space is just the fact that it comes off as, wow, this is lazy. You understand, this is kind of like you're treating this huge IP, right? This is a legendary IP. This is an IP that has made billions of dollars over the course of my lifetime and yours as well, right? It's broken records. It's multi generational. There's established canon, right? There's beloved characters. The lore is pretty much established. All these factors, right? And then you completely, you know, dismiss all of that because you want to have a fire in the vacuum of space,
So
because you want this character to do this thing to you understand, because you decided, well, I'm not going to worry about scientific plausibility. I'm not going to worry about even what's been established before within the canon of this IP. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that's really what it's just a reflection of, or a symptom of, a bigger problem, right? And that's really where the criticism comes from. It's not about, like, you can go back and, I always thought about, it makes me think about the original, A New Hope, where it's Luke is, flying, they're battling the Death Star, and his ship gets damaged, I think, and there's sparks flying, and R2D2 has to, like, fix it, right, and all this kind of,
yeah,
it's like, is that even scientifically probable that there's sparks and that, this would even be possible? I don't know. Probably not. Not to mention the dog fight in space, right?
yeah,
You understand? So none of that's scientifically plausible, right? The Death Star itself is probably physically impossible, even now with our latest technology and engineering. It's probably still an impossible structure to build, let alone build it in space, right? But yet there it is, right? So yeah, so it's not about it being plausible or not. It's like that's sort of the base complaint, right? The greater issue is, see, another example of them not caring enough about the fans or the IP or the lore to respect it enough to at least give us something that's immersive, that's plausible, that's visually and aesthetically and logically within the confines of the IP, logical and acceptable, right? Because seeing that for many, it pulls us right out of the fantasy, right? It's like, oh, a fight, what is that even? Okay, and then it just makes you feel off, like for me, it would throw me off, right? It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird, you
yeah,
know. And it seems like a little thing. It's easy to dismiss people and go, oh, you guys are, you're making a mountain out of a molehill, you know. And it's like, well, perhaps some people are. I think they're in the minority though. I think majority of people that are talking about this and complaining about it, they're valid reasons. They're saying, hey, this is just another symptom of a bigger issue, which is there is no true love or appreciation or respect for this beloved IP, right? So, and that's what it's not about the scientific plausibility. That's the surface level issue, right? What goes deeper is like you're just not trying.
Yeah.
Like you're not even trying, right? Like the fact that that even got past editors and the director and producers and VFX artists, like no one stopped and went, you know what? This doesn't make sense,
Yeah. I
right?
also
Hundreds,
want to
hundreds of people
present.
on this production, and nobody said that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, on a larger, well, not a larger. Well, I would say yeah, a larger problem to that point of not respecting the, I guess, the canon, right? The larger Simpson or whatever. You know, and I kind of brought it up last time about wanting to a. Well, it was two major problems. A, the whole want to put a major focus on the villains and whatnot, and then two, I guess in the show, the way they present the um, the way they present the Jedi Order is in a much more antagonistic light because
Yeah.
I guess they're in the show they act kind of like police and less like monks or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. Like I said, I don't. I haven't watched. I've
yeah, like
given
there's a
up
scene
on
where there's
all
like
things Disney, Marvel, Star Wars.
yeah, there's a scene where like one of the main characters, she's like, oh, I found some unauthorized use of the Force, whatever that means, and like the whole battle.
Wait, so they're policing other Jedi,
They're
or
policing. Yeah, I guess they're policing the
or
use of the
they are
Force.
they just rando people that have the Force? Like,
Uh,
I don't
I mean,
understand. That's kind of weird.
what?
I thought
Well, I know.
certain, like it was certain individuals who were, had that potential, and generally you started when they were a child, right?
Well, I know that
So how would there
the
be like,
person who's like the anti-hero of the story, she's like a former Padawan, so I believe it's her.
okay?
Yeah,
Oh, I
but
see. So, okay, so she is a former Padawan,
yeah,
and she uses the Force, and then they know, like, oh, she's using the Force, and it's not
yeah,
authorized.
yeah.
So does she have to like fill out
Yeah,
paperwork or
it's
something?
a weird it's a weird line. So it's like
Yeah, that is weird. Yeah, that is very odd. Because
yeah,
then I guess do they do that with the Sith? Like if the Sith uses, because they're using the Force also, right? So are they like you're unauthorized?
yeah,
Like when they
I don't
come
know.
across it? Yeah,
But
that's absurd. Okay, whatever.
there's other stuff that
Yeah.
but generally speaking though, the Jedi is presented as uh more corrupt, if not just as corrupt as the Sith, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of there being a Jedi and a Sith or whatever.
So the Jedi are, I guess, authoritarians or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
which
I
I mean,
mean,
which
I guess that's true on some level. Like if they're an order and they have like guidelines and doctrines, right? Because you got to kind of perceive it as almost like a religion or
yeah,
religious group to some degree, right? Like
hmm
they don't necessarily worship anything. They just understand that there's this force that we tap into, right? And it's
right.
sort of inner peace and all this kind of stuff. I mean, but I'm sure, yeah. But does that make them authoritarian? Maybe to some degree, right? There's like rules, I'm sure, but yeah, that's kind of. But you're saying they're presented almost as if there's no real difference between the Sith and the Jedi. They're kind of just two factions that are kind of just in conflict, but they're equally bad in their own way. Is that kind of how they presented it, or am I correct in that?
Something like that. I mean, it was something that was brought up in the review I saw for the show, and it was and I looked up the like who the the people behind the show. I forgot which one of the writers that worked on uh, a show in the past. Was it
You
Leslie?
told Leslie Headland. I believe she's the showrunner for the Acolyte now, right?
Yeah, yeah, I believe it. I believe so. Yeah, and then there was another what woman, I forgot her name, but I think it was Amanda Stenberg.
And who is she?
She's worked on. She's an actress. She plays. She plays the what's it called?
Oh,
The
is she like the lead or whatever?
she's the lead. She plays the remember the evil Padawan I was talking about. I don't remember these
Oh, right,
characters'
right.
names.
What I heard, she's the character is a twin, right? So there's like a good one and an evil one, right? So she's playing like a double role, like she's playing her own twin, right? I
Ah,
think
okay,
that's the premise. So okay, Amanda Stenberg, that's her name.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, one of the let me see if I can find the. But yeah, it was. But yeah, one of the people had worked on a show before that was like very like uh it's the whole I guess anti-police thing and stuff like that, and I guess it seems like they're trying to do the same thing with Star Wars, but with the Jedi as opposed
I
to
see.
what I'm saying. Yeah,
So there's this sort of anti-cop type of
yeah.
vibe going on. I see. Yeah, I mean,
So I could be wrong, but it's just based off of um,
it's kind of
the way
ironic.
this.
I mean, to if you are approaching it that way, it's somewhat ironic in that the premise of Star Wars is that it's the rebels who are against the Empire, right? The Empire, which is basically the government, right? This sort of federalized space government, right? And you have the rebels who rebel against it. They're resisting that authoritarian tyrannical rule under basically a Sith Lord, right, in the original. And so to present the Jedi as anti-cop when the Jedi were part of the rebellion, right? Right? Like were they
Yeah,
taken out to allow for the tyranny to take place? In other words, and I'm going by the prequels, from George Lucas, right, where they had to
hmm
take out the Jedi, right, in order to allow for Palpatine to rise to power. He knew they were getting his way, right? So he had to lure Anakin to the dark side, right? Because he was powerful, and they knew if he stayed on the Jedi side, he would be formidable, right? He would, right? You understand? Like imagine Darth Vader, as powerful as he is, being good, right? He would have been unstoppable, right? So it's like let me win him over, right? Then turn him against his own Jedi, right? Now the Jedi is gone, and now I can come in and seize power and do these things, and right, and that's
yeah,
the birth of the Empire. So the Jedi were anti-Empire, therefore that would be by extension anti-cop, right? Because the
yeah.
cops represent authoritarianism, right? So that's a weird thing to try and flip around and say, oh, the Jedi were like cops. It's like, well, not really, right? We're like the way they were presented in the prequels. They were more like special agents, right? They were,
Hmm.
they weren't just cops, right? They weren't just soldiers. They were, and they didn't really answer to the government. You know what I mean? Like not in a, uh, like I said, not in a way where they were somewhat subservient. At least that's the impression I had. They were their own thing, right? And they worked with the government, right? With royalty and things like that, right? It's the situation with Princess Amidala, right, and Anakin and all the being is her escort, her escort and Obi-Wan, right? Like that was the whole thing. They were like this special sort of order of protectors. So to relegate them to cops, like law enforcement, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's kind of ridiculous, right? Um,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, the show, to my understanding, also takes place um, before before the prequels. So
Oh,
at
okay.
this point,
So it precedes the prequels. Got it. So it goes even further back.
yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. So, but does it have anyone from the prequels in it? Like, I know I heard comments about like they should have had Yoda, right? So I know they didn't have Yoda, at least yet. I
not
mean,
from what I've seen. No,
I don't know if later on they'll,
I think at
but
some point there's like it could have just been bait, but at some point there was like a Wookiee with like I guess a Jedi Wookiee, which is like, oh, okay.
a
I mean,
Jedi.
that's
Well,
about as close as it gets.
I guess anyone, right? Anyone could be a Jedi at some point. So
Yeah, but I think that
that's
might have just been
more
YouTube bait because that
clickbait
happens a
type
lot.
stuff. That's hilarious. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I just thought that was funny. And of
But
course,
yeah,
on Rotten Tomatoes, it's once again, we're seeing sort of the manipulation, um, where you have these great reviews from the I guess certified reviewers, and
hmm
then awful reviews from the actual audience, right? Like it's 91%. I'm looking at it right now, you know, on the under tomato meter, but 30% under audience score. So,
hmm
and as a rule of thumb, and this is me, do what you want, but when I look at Rotten Tomatoes, because prior to this, wave of nonsense from Disney, Marvel, etc. I actually trusted Rotten Tomatoes. I actually liked going to Rotten Tomatoes and looking at reviews just to get like a general sort of opinion, like, oh, is it good? Even if I watched the movie already and I liked it, I would still go just to see what the general consensus was between the critics and the audience. Just get an idea to see kind of where I'm at. Like, oh, that's interesting. It got, it's rotten here, but I actually liked it, or it's 91% fresh here, but I hate it. Whatever, just to get an idea. But now I don't trust the critics at all. Seeing all, just seeing when they positively review movies that are objectively bad. It's like, and they've done this
yeah.
in the past with other movies. My opinion, Captain Marvel was one of the first where I noticed that. I'm like, that's an objectively bad movie, and yet it got like, it is. It's not a great movie. It's not.
No,
But yet
I'm
it's
not
got
just.
like 90, 98%, or something like that at the time. I'm like, that's ridiculous, right? But the audience score is reflective. It was like more at least from what I remember. I'm not looking at it now, but like 50 or something. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, that kind of right. It's like, yeah. So I always trust the audience score because I'm
Yeah,
like, these are just people. Now, granted, that could be just as manipulative, I suppose. Um, but generally, I'm like, an audience, member is gonna waste their time chilling
they're
for
not getting paid to have an opinion.
most people. Yeah, it's like most
Yeah.
people. I'm not
on
going to waste my
average.
time, trying to promote something that I know is bad, right?
Yeah.
It makes no sense unless I'm paid. And I'm sure, maybe some of them, right here, it's at 5,000 plus rating. So even if, 10% of them are, fake positive, right? You know what I mean? It's like, I think the majority are going to be just regular people, just people who are like, you know what, this is so bad. I gotta like kind of vent and let me give my 2 cents, right? And that's fine. So I tend to trust that more than the critics, because critics are critics. I'm not saying all critics are bought and paid for, but there's probably a lot that are. So
I mean,
I
even
I
well,
just don't trust it. Just as a rule of thumb. That's just me. I
well,
could be
I
wrong.
mean, me for me personally, from my experience, I think the issue is that the issue is not necessarily that all critics are bought and paid for, but rather most critics are out of touch with the general populace, and that's me coming more from a music
Um,
standpoint than anything.
well, I mean,
Movies, it might be a little different. TV might be a little different,
maybe, yeah. I
but
mean, it depends. Yeah, I guess I don't know if it's most.
for music and games, I find that a lot of critics are sort of out of touch with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of them are, um, because a lot of these, gaming, and that's a whole other conversation. Like the gaming
Yeah.
sites and everything are kind of taken over by a certain ideology, right? So they tend to skew a certain way because they're dominated. It's like recently I saw, kind of segueing to just that idea of these ideologically driven, entities like web-based news rags, etc., and pop culture, uh, news rags. Like James O'Keefe released some footage, recently where he, it was where is he? I think he was working at, man, where was it? Oh, it's now. See, I'm drawing a blank now. Yeah, so I hate that. He was working for a major entity. I don't know. I can't remember if it was a newspaper or if it was a. Oh, that's right. It was Good Morning America. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
And he was like a producer or something like that on Good Morning America. And he's talking about how, yeah, like there is this bias and things like that. And he's basically affirming everything that we're physically seeing. Right? We've seen it. We've witnessed it ourselves in real time, of this bias against Trump, for example, against conservatives, against just anything that represents what's kind of normal, what we think is normal, opinions or thinking. They turn it into like, oh, that's right wing extremism or whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, he kind of affirmed that in this conversation he was having, and with the investigative person that was there, and it's like, yeah, there's this phenomena that's happened in a lot of media, where these media entities, where they've hired. I believe, in my opinion, it starts at the top. So there are people, maybe they're on the board, maybe they're top executives, whatever, and then they go out of their way to hire people based on ideology, based on like, oh, this person's going to believe what we want them to believe. Therefore, they're going to say or write what we want them to write. And they hire them, and those people, because they're given free reign to like just give their opinion and anything that bolsters what they already have ascribed to themselves, which generally leans, uh, liberal or far left. And so they get out there and they just, like everybody's a Nazi and all this kind of stuff, right? You start getting more
Hmm.
and more content like that demonizes what used to be not even, I wouldn't even say conservative views, but just general normal, viewpoints. You know what I mean? And it's like, what is happening, right? And but it's because of that. It's and it's just infiltrated so much of entertainment, um, and not just entertainment, but just corporate America, you know, and it's and I think going back to the acolyte, I think this is just one more sort of piece of proof or evidence of that, right? That like I saw they did a press junket, of course, to promote the show. What's his name? Headland, right? And her
Mm-hmm.
couple of actresses, and they're just talking, they're joking about how gay it is. It's going to be the gayest Star Wars, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, what's going through their head? Like where they think that that makes any world of sense. Like it's one thing, for example, if it's a one particular actor or actress from the show, right? And after it's been released and after it's received some nominal success, right? It's gained some traction. And then you have an actor and actress and they're on a talk show, let's say Conan. Like I love Conan O'Brien. He's one of the great late show hosts, right? But
Mm-hmm.
and he's on there and they're talking and and jokingly somehow the conversation gets to being gay or something, right? And they make those comments. Oh, it's the gayest star. That's a little different, right? Contextually, from the actual showrunner and writer and director, and the lead actors before it's even out, saying things like that and saying it in a way that is kind of serious. Like they're, even though they were kind of laughing about it, it's like I didn't sense that they were, trying to be comedic necessarily. And that's what I'm saying. Like it's like, why would you do that? I don't know. It's just very odd, right? The mentality, because you're not playing to the audience, right? That is looking for it, right? The
Yeah.
actual fans. And I'm not just talking about guys my age or something. I'm talking about in general, right? Like people who actually love Star Wars, they're introduced to it through comics or books or the original movies or the prequels, right? And so they're familiar with the lore and they love it. They want to continue to uh, sort of participate in it. But you're kind of signaling to them that it's not for them, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not for you. It's for these people who are a very small percentage of the audience, right? Very relative to the rest of the actual demographic, they're a very small. But we're going to cater to them, right? And many of them that you're catering to, they're not active participants anyway, right? They're not looking
Mm-hmm.
for it anyway. They're not going to watch it, right? Very few of them, and so relatively speaking, so then it obviously doesn't do great. Now, granted, Disney released numbers saying that it got the highest amount of views this year, um, like 4 million. Which is that's impressive, right? Um, is it real? Is that a
I
real
don't
number?
know.
Um, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, right? And that's views. Where's the and see? This is something that annoys me with Netflix. Netflix did this. They stopped doing this years ago.
What you mean, like
A lot
hiding
of
or inflating the numbers or something?
no, they turned off comments. It
Oh,
used
I
to
mean,
be
everybody does
no,
that.
but early on in Netflix, when you were subscriber, you can go into a comment area for a show or a movie
uh,
and put and rate it and say, hey, I liked it or I hated it or I wish it would have did this or that. And sometimes it did get heated, especially with certain TV shows, like a show that would be made or
yeah.
but generally it was interesting because a lot of times I would read the comments first before trying out something new, right? Something I'm not familiar with. I would go to
Hmm.
those comments to see, okay, what is this about? What's the general opinion, and I'll get a good idea of like what to expect, and it's like, oh, okay, let me go ahead and check it out. Or sometimes I go, nah, you know, and they turn that off,
Oh,
so
really?
even though they still let you do a thumbs up or a thumbs down, right? Or actually, I think they only let you do a thumbs up. I'm not even sure. From what I remember, I think you can do a thumbs up or a double thumbs up, right? And I think that's it.
Okay.
I don't think you can even do a down vote.
So
But
wait, so they replaced the the thumbs down with a
If I
double
if I
thumbs up.
recall, it's been a while since I've logged into Netflix, but
Kind of
I know I
it's kind of
remember the
nuts.
double thumbs up, right? And it's like fine, but it's like to say, yeah, these millions of people watched it. Take our word for it, and you can't even go in and actually like read commentary where people are just gonna say, like Rotten Tomatoes, right? Say I loved it or I hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go to a Rotten Tomatoes, right? Which then it's like, is it even skewed? Even like I said, even the audience reviews, they can be skewed, right? It's like, um, why can't I get that right in the app, right? So,
Right.
it's unfortunate, but so you gotta kind of just, trust Disney. But then personally, I have no reason to trust them, right? They've broken that trust time and time again by giving us mediocre to terrible content, right? So, um, when there's no reason, like there's no valid reason for it, they've,
Hmm.
and mainly it's because they have prioritized, DEI agenda over storytelling, right? And versus just tell a great story, and you can include whatever diversity you want, right? But just prioritize the good storytelling, right? The great production value, like prioritize that, and give us a great story. Then you can put in your representation, whatever like
Hmm.
that's fine, right? But they prioritize the representation over story. At least that's how it appears, right? Because they keep giving us, well, the acolyte, right? you
Yeah.
know, or the Book of Boba Fett, or they keep giving
I
us
didn't watch that.
stuff that's like, what are you doing,
Well,
right?
from
Like,
what I remember, the Book of Boba Fett was just bad.
yeah, that's
I
right.
don't remember. I
It
don't
was bad.
remember there people
I've
talking about it
seen
being.
the trailer, I've seen clips, and it's still just nothing there that made me go, I want to watch this. It just wasn't, you know. And that's been a lot of stuff. Like the last thing I got excited about when it comes to Star Wars and Disney was the Mandalorian, and that was the first season, I guess, first two seasons were actually
Yeah.
really entertaining and very good. I think it started going downhill in season two, but it still kept me engaged, um, and it didn't feel like there was this message they were trying to. It just felt like they're just telling the story. They're telling this sort of western in space, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I like that. I love the vibe of it, and it was awesome when Luke Skywalker appeared in that final episode.
Hmm.
That was epic. Um, I do wish it was better, like the visual. Like I kind of felt like maybe they kind of rushed it. Who knows? I don't. Yeah. But
I
still,
guess. I
the fact
mean,
that
it looked.
they included,
Yeah.
it looked okay. It could have been better, but still, the fact that they included Luke Skywalker and brought him in like that was
Hmm.
amazing. It was like that's what fans have been wanting for so long, was to see the hero be a hero. Go figure, right? Have the hero of this franchise, which he is. He is the hero of the franchise, right? His story is not didn't end, in the Empire Strikes Back, right? It was just beginning, right? And he's been pretty much nerfed and turned into a bitter old coot,
Yeah.
and now he's dead. You know what I mean? It's like it's like fine
Yeah.
if you want him to end as a bitter old coot, whatever.
Yeah, but the way they did
Give
it
us
wasn't
give us the
natural.
yeah, give us the story that leads to that. Give us the adventures, that gets us to that point. And they didn't
Hmm.
even do that. So it wasn't satisfying or cathartic or anything. It was just kind of like,
No.
oh, okay, I guess that's that. Right?
Yeah.
There was no effort to at least say, well, let's give, the rest of Luke Skywalker's story, right?
Hmm.
What happened after all that, right? Where did he go? What adventures did he go on? That led to him to the Last Jedi, right? Like but they failed us on that. So yeah, I don't have any trust for Disney. So they just keep dropping the ball on things that are honestly are kind of obvious, right? This is not like rocket science, but they
Mm.
turn it into rocket science because they're trying to reconfigure something that was meant to entertain and be something for everyone, and they're trying to reconfigure it into something for specific special interest groups, you know, and to give a specific message, right? And it's not made for that. It's like to act like instead of saying it's Star Wars, just it's just a sci-fi adventure about these twins. It'd probably be better received. Who knows? I don't know. You know, but
Well, we'll
because you
see.
keep taking existing IP and reconfiguring it into something that it's not, right? You're just further alienating existing fans, right? And then you're not even bringing in new fans because the new fans are looking at it and going, "That doesn't appeal to me. I don't like that," you know.
Well, we're
So
only
it's
on episode
losing
2,
forward.
so I mean, we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. Maybe it get better. I don't know. So far though, it's struggling, right? So onward. I wanted to bring up uh, AI. That's
Oh
another
boy.
hot topic um, lately. I mean, the last few years actually, but especially now. And it's something that Ashton Kutcher said, and what he said wasn't new. Like others have made the exact same point before. Um,
Yeah. Um,
but yeah, it's he's basically said that eventually you'll be able to just kind of tell the AI what movie you want, and it'll just make the movie for you, right?
sure. I think
And I think he's right. Um,
to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, I've heard this point before, and one of the things that I always like to point out is the because I was talking about this with somebody a couple weeks ago, and the main and yeah, there's a lot of cool AI stuff out there, um, varying degrees of quality. AI. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's pretty much integrated into our pop culture at this point. Not just with like memes, but also, I mean, yeah, with but like people are using AI voices to create various types of content. We just had the whole controversy with wasn't really. I mean, it was kind of blown out of proportion, but I don't know if you ever saw, but somebody made a Scooby Doo Five Nights at Freddy's crossover
really?
animation with stop motion,
Oh, I've heard of
and
that.
it was awesome. It was a great. It was in the vein of a classic Scooby Doo, but because he couldn't afford to hire uh, voice actors at the time, some of the voices were done in AI, and I didn't realize it until somebody pointed it out. Because the voices were pretty good, but people gave him a lot of flack, even though he's just one dude, you know, and you know, paying people to voice act is expensive. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I see
get
it.
it.
Yeah,
It's not. It's like, and this is for like, and thankfully some people came out of the woodwork. It was like, hey, we'll voice your project. We'll help you out. So they were cool with them, but like a lot of people were giving this independent artist a lot of flack for trying to create something,
yeah.
and it's not like he wasn't trying to like prove a point with AI. He just wanted to
He just
do
wanted to
this
make
cool
what he wanted to
animation.
make, and he
Yeah,
wanted to do it at the lowest cost possible,
yeah,
right? He wanted to create the best possible quality product
yeah.
at the lowest
And
possible cost.
honestly, he did.
Yeah, and
So
that's the part that is kind of missed with a lot of artists. Is that's the point of any of these digital tools. Let's like separate AI for now and just look at Adobe products, right?
Yeah.
Any multimedia product. That's the whole point of the product, is to make creating things, graphics,
Hmm.
imagery, video, easier, more. It's more productive, right? It's like if most of the stuff that we see today, including the web itself, wouldn't be possible without these programs,
Yeah.
right?
Now
Like
mhm.
that's just that's just the reality, right? Like it's facilitated immense amount of progress in this space, and we're just talking about entertainment and graphics and media, right? Like technology has made it so that we can produce media, we can produce content, we can produce works of art faster and more efficiently, and then distribute it more efficiently, and making it more profitable, potentially more profitable because of that,
Yeah.
right? And it's like look at like the space. Like we're producing a comic, so that means we're looking at and talking to a lot of artists, comic artists, etc. And man, so many artists out there are doing offering commission work, right? And
Hmm.
look at what all they have to do, like compared to when I was in college, right before the internet was what it was today, right? All you have to do is open up a social media account, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, right? YouTube, and then post something, say commissions open, right? And then post a few examples of your work or link to your portfolio site on ArtStation, which is pretty much free initially, and then maybe you pay a small fee every year for them to host more, but you understand. And
Hmm.
some are free, like DeviantArt is still free, like for a basic plan. So,
Yeah.
and people say, oh, I like that, right? They click on it, I like it, then they say, okay, I want to hire you, do a commission. Okay, pay me X amount of dollars. Okay,
Yeah.
how do I pay you? Well, there's this thing called PayPal, Cash App, uh, Venmo, whatever, right? It's like it's we take it for granted, but that's mind blowing, right? When you look back,
Hmm.
and like even when I first started out, and I used to do like a lot of freelance graphic design, and it was a pain trying to get paid, right? I'd do with checks. Sometimes I want to pay cash. Okay, now I
Yeah.
got to go deposit at the bank. It's like there was no like Cash App and PayPal. It was like write me a check, and then
Yeah.
if I work for a company, right, an actual company that had payroll services and all that, then I had to give them my information, and then they had to go through this whole process, and it would take time for them to actually send me a check, and then they had to hold 30 days out, 90 days, I mean, you understand, there's reasons for that because it takes time to process things, right?
Yeah.
And now it's virtually instant, right? Like I can hire an artist on Twitter, we agree to a price, I send them money based on how they want to receive it, if it's paid,
Yeah.
whatever, and they create something, and then they send it to me digitally by on Twitter or
Yeah.
email. If I want a
So
bigger file, they use Mail Big File or some other. It's like this is amazing, right? So,
yeah.
and but just imagine how many other positions and jobs, etc., that has eliminated in the
So
process.
that being said, though, I think the one thing that I will defend, I don't want to say it's not really playing devil's advocate. I think it's just pointing out something really important, a really key difference between hiring a, well, just in general, just having art or content done by a AI versus having it done by a person is intention. And when I say intention, I mean like, uh, it's purposefully doing things in a certain way,
Hmm.
right? When I when like our brother, he makes music. When he places instruments and different motifs and melodies in a certain fashion, he's doing it with a specific intention, right, or aim, right?
Right. You're talking
And
about the human aspect of creativity and innovation, right?
yeah,
Like he's using his talents and his imagination and his expertise that he spent years perfecting to create something. And when he creates something and then others enjoy it and they're willing to part ways with their money, right, to acquire it, that's
yeah,
a sign that his years of training is valuable, right? And
yeah,
it's paid off. And that's
and
kind of the what's missing with AI is,
yeah,
well, I
and the
typed in a
human
prompt.
aspect isn't just, oh, this painting looks pretty, or this music
Yeah,
sounds
it's
nice.
the
The human
appreciation of
aspect.
the process itself, everything that came led up to that painting, right?
Well,
That's why.
not even just that. It's the small details in the painting, right, or in the song that were put there on purpose, and you
Right.
wouldn't really.
See, yeah, you just said it, purposeful, right? Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean when I
yeah,
say
yeah,
intention is purpose. Yeah,
yeah. That's a very good
when it comes
point.
to AI, there the purpose is to satisfy uh whatever prompt
Right,
you give it as
but
best as
I
possible,
would contend
but
this
it's
though.
not always going to do that accurately, right? That's why
Well,
you
that's
get
true,
the
but
five
see, okay,
fingers
see, you're
and
you're
the
you're you're going down a rabbit hole, and this is why I say this, right?
what
And
rabbit hole though?
well, because and I've used AI software. I've played around with it. I've created stuff. I've done stuff, and it's not as simple as just like you said. It doesn't always do exactly what the prompt says, which means it doesn't always produce what you intended to produce, which
Hmm.
means you have to refine the prompt over and over again to get it to where you want it, which means what?
Yeah, I
It means
get that.
there
Yeah,
is purpose. There's still a human aspect currently. Now, maybe in another few years, it'll be producing on its own. I don't know. But right now, it's still, and that was the point I was making earlier with the other just quote unquote traditional software, is that it's still a tool. It's another quiver, right? um, to your tool set. It's still a tool that you can use and leverage to produce something and to
I
do it
agree.
more
It's
efficient for more efficiently, with a lower barrier of entry, a lower barrier of obstacles, etc.
mhm.
When it comes to the creative process, and it's good for iteration. It's good for concepting. Um, you understand what I'm saying? And ultimately, obviously, it's going to get to a point where it's good for a final product, right? Like that's inevitable. Right now, it's not quite there yet,
No,
right? But it's getting close where you can actually put. And that's the point I think Ashton Kutcher is bringing up is that um, it's getting to, and he says that later in the article, in the Variety article, that he's like he's seen certain clips from, I think it's Sora, where he's like that could be used in a big budget movie. Like that's good enough to use right there, right? No editing, no extra nothing. Like I can just grab that and put it in a movie and it's gonna work. And so he's like the potential is there for that to be the case, right? And but I would say even then, right, and even now, it's important to understand. Just like the point you just brought up about intent and being purposeful. Right now, AI is still intentional and purposeful, right?
not really.
Yes, it
Not
is.
on the
Yes,
level of the person. No,
I'm not. No,
because
listen. Well, again, let
even
me
if
finish
it
my point. Let me finish my point. What I'm saying is, it is intentional and purposeful because a person is the one who's constructing that prompt. A person is the one who is who is even giving the AI the content in order to produce something, right? It's telling it make this, right, and make it this way, this angle, this lighting, this color scheme, this height, this weight, this texture, etc. That's all coming from a human, right? So there is still, I'm not saying it's the exact same as painting a picture. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that purpose and intent are still present currently, right? It's still there. The AI isn't creating upon its own volition, right? It's a tool that's being used to create by people, right? Just like Photoshop, people would joke and sometimes seriously critique, tools like Photoshop or Maya, where it's like, oh, you just push a button and you
Yeah,
get this,
that's true.
and it's like, well, no, it's not that simple, right? Sure, those programs help facilitate the production of beautiful animation and graphics, etc. But a person still has to master the skill set to use those tools to create those beautiful works of art, right? It still takes a person, an artist, iterating. It still has an iterative process, right? There's still purpose and intent, even with a digital tool, and that includes AI, right? Current day AI still requires human input. It still requires human filtering. It still requires human imagination, right? It does, right? It Sure, it's easier, right? The path from A to Z is shorter, right? That's true, but that Z is a little crooked. You know what I mean? It's not still not there. It's not perfect. It's still, even that output still requires human intervention, human intent and purpose to go in and correct, fix, repair, alter, edit, etc. Right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna. I really don't think that's gonna change. I feel like,
What do you mean? What's not going to change?
but that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's gonna be a point where I guess the. I mean, I say that, but I know that there's robots building cars now instead of people. But I really don't,
Right,
stuff like that. But
because robots aren't thinking of a car design and going outside and grabbing the raw materials. There's still people programming those robots. There's still
yeah,
engineers involved in the process. You understand? That's all I'm
yeah,
saying. Like, the robots are building the cars. People are using robots to build cars. That's a
yeah,
different sentence than before, right? Robots aren't building cars. People are using robots to build cars, right? AR art is people using technology, right? An AI system to create art. It's not AI creating art. And currently, and I'm kind of with this with a lot of artists, is the real gripe is the fact that, well, many of these early AI systems were grabbing other artists' work as reference, right?
yeah.
Without their consent and their permission. And that
Hmm.
argument I agree with. It's like, yeah, that's pretty foul, right? Like, it's one thing to
Hmm.
grab from like the Getty Images library, because a lot of that is free and open source, right? It's
Hmm.
or some other open source place, right? Repository somewhere, right, where there's lots of photos, graphics. But to
Yeah,
take specifically from artists who you didn't approach and say, hey, can we use your body of work as a, to feed into our database, right? And not get their consent or compensate them, right? So I agree with
yeah,
that notion that, hey, you can't, because I think there was a few instances where someone used AI and replicated someone else's work, actual work, right, and then entered it into a art contest and it won, right? That's crazy. And this is the thing, though, it's art theft, right?
yeah.
Well, this has been going on before AI, right?
Hmm.
There's been artists out there who have. I remember there was one artist. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was basically redrawing old school sci-fi uh, book covers, right, by some
Oh,
greats,
yeah,
and just remaking them in Blender and Photoshop, and then blowing them up into these giant pieces and putting them on display, and then people were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, right? And it's like, yo, like, and he wasn't even deviating from like, he was literally replicating the look and feel, the texture, the tone, the color scheme, everything, right? But it's like, oh, here's my art. It's like, well, you you're not even giving homage to the original artist. At least, like, give
yeah,
them credit. At least break them off a piece of that 100 grand you just got paid, right? No, he
yeah.
was just, and it's like, yeah, it's like, where does iterative end and art theft begin? Right? Now, I say
Hmm.
directly copying something is definitely art theft, right? To just literally pixel for pixel or paint stroke for a paint stroke, right? And I think that's where AI breaks down, is when it becomes art theft, when you're just, give me this Alex Ross Superman, you know, and it just gives me, say, well, just go to Alex Ross and buy a print. You
Yeah.
understand? Like, like, don't rip them off and remake his stuff and then act like you did something. Like that's where, yeah, I have a big issue with it. Even if it's like elements, you got to be
Hmm.
careful about that. And that's where a lot of artists find contention with. And I think that's valid. And that's where the court cases came from, right? And all that stuff. But beyond that, the next concern is obviously jobs, right? Is it going to replace artists, right? And I would say yes and no, right? Um, it will replace certain positions, obviously. Will it replace
Yeah.
artists whole cloth? No.
No, I don't
Artists
think so.
artists will never, just like before. Like I was in college when Illustrator and Photoshop hit the scene, and that was a big deal for a lot of traditional graphic designers and stuff, and artists, photographers, etc. And then once they learned about it and learned how to use it, they realized, oh, this is a godsend. It makes things a lot easier. I can do this, right? And I think that's going to be the case with
Hmm.
AI for a lot of artists, especially professional artists, who are able and willing to adapt, right? Adapt it into a workflow.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's going to eliminate artists at all. I think it will enhance what actual artists are already doing. It'll make what they're doing
Hmm.
maybe more efficient, faster, um, you know, all those different things, right? But yeah, some people, just like with the introduction of digital fonts, right? That put a lot of type houses out of business, right? A lot of these, there used to be like one called Amigre. I don't know if they're still around, but they used to be one of the premier font houses where they create all these beautiful, great fonts. And they would create the letter sets and all that and distribute and sell it. And you used to have to buy a font to use it in an ad, and then you would get this letter set. You know, I'm dating myself,
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
no, I know what you're talking.
capital.
I
But
know what you're
and
talking.
that and like the lot of, pre-press workers used to build mechanicals and stuff from the art, like physically layout and all that, layout artists, all that disappeared
Yeah.
with what's called desktop publishing and digital tools, right? Because now we
Yeah.
don't really need those anymore. We just out, like the LA Times. I used to work for them years ago. They began outputting from digital direct to what's called a plate, and that plate gets fed right into the printer, and for offset printing. When before you had to output to, well, you could not. You had to output to a different material, and then do a press and like transfer it to the plate and all this. Like that was a whole job position that disappeared because now we can just go direct, right? And then, like I said,
Hmm.
mechanicals, that doesn't even exist anymore. Doing a mechanical is when you lay out your design for the press, for a pre-press, so that they can take it and actually make a plate from it, right? And they would like almost kind of create what's called a negative, and like I can explain the whole. None of that's needed anymore. Now there's
Yeah.
digital printing. You don't even need offset printing, right? Now you got digital presses. You just
Yeah.
print directly to a press and print out 1,000, 2,000, 20,000, right? It's
Hmm.
like, so jobs were lost. Positions were eliminated. But then what did those people do? Well, a lot of those people, and I met many of them when I used to teach. I taught Photoshop and Illustrator. I learned it myself and ended up teaching it. And they were in my class. These guys who were traditional animators and stuff and designers. They took my class. They're like, I'm trying to, you know, keep my job. I'm trying to, because
Yeah.
the company was transitioning to all digital, right? And they were getting workstations and all that. So they had to learn Photoshop. They had to learn Illustrator. So people adapt, and that's part of it too. Is a lot of artists are going to adapt, and they're gonna have to learn once it becomes more standardized, right? Like right now, there's no like standardized sort of like industry standard software, AI software, right? It's kind of all over the place, right? I mean, Chat GPT is kind of in the lead when it comes to that, like being seen as sort of established, right? Because it's very stable. Um, it has multiple, a wide array of use cases now. So a lot of companies are adapting it and using it, and that's a good thing because that means, oh, let me learn Chat GPT, so that now I can add that to my resume, right? Now I can create some use cases with it, and that's part of my portfolio, right? Um, so Dolly is another one. It's pretty. It's become pretty standard. So
Yeah.
Stable Diffusion, all that. So it's like eventually there's going to be just like what Adobe is doing. They're integrating it right into their software, and eventually there's going to be this standalone software that just it's just AI driven. It's going to have these crazy tools that just you're going to be able to like do pretty amazing stuff, and you're going to have to know how to use it to get a job, right? To get to be employed in entertainment or create the creative industry. So I think that's where it's going. It's going to be absorbed and integrated and adapted, and so there's still going to be a demand for a artist, right? Because who'd you rather? You know, it's just like it's listen. It's just like
Yeah.
if when Photoshop and Illustrator hit the scene, and all that, digital products, right? Corel Draw. It's like, yeah, you can hire someone to come in who's not an artist, who has no artistic training or background, and teach them the software, and now they can click around and create something. Is it going to be beautiful? Probably not.
No.
Right? Is it going to work?
You're still
You
gonna
know,
hire. You're still gonna hire
right? You still
artists because
need
they
an
know the
artist
basics, the
because, yeah, you
fundamentals.
still need, just like in 3D, in the 3D space. What do they tell you? Right? A lot of graduates from art school, etc., who want to get into 3D or want to get a job working at Pixar or something, right? They still tell them learn how to draw, learn about art. They still tell you that. Go to. I've been to like Nomon school and all that. I've been to some of their presentations. They still, to guys who are in the industry, right, who have worked at some of these excuse me, these major studios. They'll still tell you learn how to draw, learn about art, right? Why?
Hmm.
Because that's the foundation of everything. So an artist, if you are an artist, right, you are artistic, you have artistic talent, you're not being replaced with AI. You're not. What you're going to have to do is adapt AI into a some type of workflow, right? So you got to kind of keep your eye on the industry and keep your eye on what's going on so that you can adapt and move with it so that you remain employable, right? Especially if you're a young artist, if you're still starting out, just continue to be an artist, continue to hone your skill because it's going to be needed. And more so than that is other soft skills like communication, right? Being able to speak in front of people, that kind of stuff, being able to work on a team, being collaborative, all those, just like before, like none of this changed, right? You still have to be a well rounded individual that's employable, right?
Hmm.
um, so that they can hire you and you can work and do what needs to be done, right? But the only difference is the tools will look different, right? And the
Yeah.
tools will be modified with AI, or the tools will be AI itself, right? That's the difference. So my advice is just learn about AI, understand it, and learn and figure out a way to adapt it, right? Adapt it into a workflow, because you never know. I mean, if you're able to adapt it into a workflow that saves time and money, right? And you post that and you have this sort of portfolio of work like that, a lot of employers will see that and go, huh, let me check this guy out. He might save me some money on this project I have coming up, right? So it's gonna be crazy. So but yeah, there's as always there's gonna be some people who are negatively affected, right? That's unfortunate. Right? Look at Tyler Perry, right? I've heard that he canceled like a whole development. He was going to expand his studios, right? It was like
Hmm.
$80 million, right? He was going to expand to build
Right.
out more facilities so he can do more production, right? So that's VFX, computers, all that stuff, right? Props. And when he saw like Sora and all this stuff, he was like, never mind. Right? Like let me
Oh,
sit back and
oh,
wait to see what happens. And that's smart. That makes perfect sense because he's like, I'm
interesting.
gonna spend $80 million, and then this software comes out, and basically I have a lot of wasted space, right?
Right.
I wasted $80 million when I could have spent a few thousand and got this top of the line computer running this AI, right?
Mm.
So yeah, you know, it's going to change because that's $80 million worth of jobs that will never be, right. If you look at it that way, right, that's $80 million worth of jobs. Not to mention the supporting economy around that, right? Construction and things. You understand? Like
Right.
that's all never
Yeah.
going to be. because of this advancement in AI. So yeah, there's going to be some losses, but I also think there's going to be a lot of gains. And but it's up to those of us who are willing to adapt it into our workflows and into and figure out creative ways to use it. And I think for a lot of people, including especially artists, is it's also an opportunity. Like he mentioned, Five Nights at Freddy's with Scooby Doo crossover, and he leveraged AI for the voice work, right? It's like, bro, it's not just the voice work now. Now it's graphics, it's animation, it's
Yeah.
music. So, a lot of artists, like people who are talented, right? People who have creative vision. Now the barrier of entry to produce your own thing, that idea you've been having in the back of your brain while you're grinding away at ILM or some of these other VFX houses, right? Or these gaming studios, right? Now it's
Yeah.
like, that idea I've been having, maybe I could actually do that. Maybe it's more possible. It's more attainable now, and I can, and then, you know, I always say, thank God for the internet, I guess, because it democratizes access. Now, all I need is a
Yeah.
YouTube channel or a Twitter account or a Facebook account or an Instagram, right?
Hmm.
And or just a website, and I can just put my stuff there and say, pay me a couple of bucks, or if you like it, send me money, or Patreon, right? Same thing, right?
Right.
So it's like the sky's the limit, really. So we can look at the negative, and yeah, there's going to be negative, unfortunately, but that's kind of par for the course. But um, I choose to focus on the positive, in that, man, like, there's so much possibility now where someone like us, right, we can produce what we want and do it for way, way less money. And hopefully, the upside is, if it's good, right, if people love it,
Right.
make way, way more money than we would otherwise, right?
Hmm.
So lower cost to produce, higher return, right? Higher relative return. That's a winning strategy, right? That's exciting to think that, man, if I can just imagine you can produce a animated, you know, uh, I don't know, like TV show or something, and produce an episode every once, let's say once a month, right? Because you're leveraging AI. Man, can you imagine? Right? That'd be amazing, right? So now you can just focus on. Let me just make sure it's good. Let me focus on his writing. Let me
Right.
make sure the story is compelling. Let me focus on the production quality. Let me get those camera angles right. Let me, right?
Hmm.
And man, and people see that and go, "Oh man, I like this. I'm going to support it." You know,
Yeah.
that's exciting, man. That's so I say, listen, it's inevitable. So you can either go with it and make it work for you, or just be mad about
Yeah.
it and miss out on opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the only thing is yeah, it's kind of ironic because it's mostly the I guess the it's mostly people my age complaining about it. You know, the young people, quote unquote, and
Yeah.
and honestly, I think the fact of the matter is it's only really going to affect people. It's only going to affect mediocre people. I mean, just being real.
Well, yeah,
I
I've
think
heard that
people
sentiment.
like you, and I say that not because um, you know, oh, you're just mad that you're bad at drawing. I say that because um, it's people, it's people who aren't willing to learn and grow that are gonna be affected by this. That's
Yeah, right. That's what I'm
kind
saying. But
of
that
what I
that could
mean.
be that. Yeah, that's besides talent, though, right? Like there's like, listen, like I said, I've talked to guys offline who are wildly talented, right? Great artists, and they hate AI. They hate it with a passion, and they don't they. It's like they're just so adamant about it, I've talked to guys online. Like I connect to a lot of guys on ArtStation, and these are
That's
wonderful
fair. I
artists,
mean,
and they're like, no AI, no AI, right? And it's like, okay, and part of it is a principle stance, right? Meaning they understand that some of this AI, like we mentioned earlier, is stealing art, right? Like people use
yeah,
it to
I
steal
get
art,
that.
and or using referencing your art without your consent. Like yeah, okay, that's fair, but overall, it's like that's going to be rectified, right? It's already been litigation. It's been in court. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that's going to get rectified. So while that's happening, instead of flat out rejecting it, right? How about you say, let me kind of keep watching and see what happens. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to figure out how I can leverage this for my career, right? Or for my purposes. Like if you're trying to produce your own thing or both, right? So that's how I see it. It's like how can I leverage this so that it benefits me? Because I feel like that's the only logical way forward. So, but yeah, I mean, but I don't think it's just going to affect people who are not talented.
Well,
If
it's
anything,
I only it's a lot of the people
if you're not
online that
talented,
are
before you're not talented now. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
that's
You're
true.
going to get filtered out regardless because if you're just not good, you're not good. But it's really a matter of really it's those who have relative talent, meaning maybe they're not great at iterating, like drawing, and but they have imagination, right? They have that creative spark. They have ideas, and now AI will help them, realize those ideas, visualize them properly. That's going to happen. You're going to have guys who
Yeah,
aren't
that's
traditional
true.
artists who can go in, but they have that creative spark. They have great ideas. And now they can execute them, right? So it's really
Hmm.
about the person that executes. It's the person that is able to leverage, right? Learn, leverage, and execute. That's really it. you
Yeah,
know, I mean, it's yeah. Talent's gonna be the one thing that kind of helps to separate you from the rest. Like if you're just wildly talented, you know, like there's a million comic book artists, but there's only one Alex Ross, right?
yeah.
And I always bring up Alex Ross because he's my favorite, right? But
I
he's
mean,
immensely talented,
he's
right?
Alex. I mean, no, I
Yeah.
agree.
So whatever he does, it's gonna look amazing, right? Like that's just right because no one really does what he does, like the way he does it, right? Some come close. I've seen other artists where they get that hyper realism, but it's you can still look and you're like, oh no, that's not quite Alex Ross, right? Because and part of it is they're not trying to be, they're trying to have their own distinct look. But
Yeah, it's
the
the own
point is
style.
that
Yeah,
he's because of his immense talent, he he's above the rest in that sense, right? Like you can see him. There's others, of course. I'm just saying, using him as an example. He stands out, right? And that's fine. That's going to happen with people who are just immensely talented, regardless of the technology, right? The technology, though, will help them realize it, more efficiently, right? I think that's, like if you're an artist and you're great at drawing and rendering, AI is a godsend because now you can iterate, you can
yeah,
conceptualize faster, and then go in and just do handle your business. Like that's, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's phenomenal, right? You're gonna save so much time. You're gonna be able to crank out stuff, and have it still be this optimum quality, right? So there's a lot of upside here if you see it in the right way and use it the right way, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, talent is the need for talent will never go away, and the desire for it will never change, right? People recognize talent and people
yeah. That's true.
reward it when it's presented. Now there are outliers. There's always exceptions. Like we did have what were they called? Nilly Vanilli, right? We did have a Nilly Vanilli, way back
Yeah, that
when.
was years ago.
It happens. I was just saying, like sometimes the untalented slip through the cracks. you know, we get a
Oh,
Nilly
yeah,
Vanilli.
but they
That's all.
rightfully got exposed though. So
Yeah, they did. Exactly. That's
yeah,
that's
but
what I'm saying.
that's the thing
So
though. They got
I was just saying, yeah, it does. But
so it didn't
most of the
last very
time,
long.
yeah, if you're talented, you're gonna be, you put it out there, you're gonna be rewarded, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
so I wouldn't fret. I would just, like I said, adapt. Um, so the last
Yeah,
thing
that's
you
really the
brought up,
answer.
uh, you talked about offline about iconic fictional characters, and I guess what does that mean? Like, and you
Well,
want
I
to explain
guess so. There
more?
are a lot of characters, right, that sort of just transcend generations, right? Mickey Mouse, Superman, Spider Man. Those are all cartoon characters. But then there's also like even with like live action shows, right, or just
Mm,
live action anything, right? The the people uh like All in the Family. I bring up All in the Family because like even though many people don't necessarily talk about the show, you could see that it's still very influential just on pop culture. Look at Family Guy. The intro of Family Guy is literally a spoof of the intro to All in the Family, right? It's the husband and wife on the piano
yeah,
singing about the good old days. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's become iconic, right?
Yeah, but that came. It took me a minute, but I realized, oh, that's All in the Family. Oh, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and so, um, I think I don't know if there's like, would you say that I'm curious to see if there are any like modern properties that have that same that you like have that same amount or will have that. I think I guess I mean literally only time will tell. But I'm curious to see
So
if
are there
what
current day iconic characters?
yeah, you know what I mean.
Um,
Like I haven't really
I mean, the
experienced.
first thing that came to my mind was Master Chief, and then
Sure, but Halo. That's the thing, though. Halo came out. Uh,
that's
I
still
guess
that's
you. I
pretty
guess
recent.
that
It's modern,
counts.
yeah. And
I
then
mean,
there's
but
Metroid Samus, right? It's another.
yeah,
I
that came
think
out in the '80s, though.
still, yeah, but it's still
I'm
relevant
talking
today.
about like in the past.
For like 10 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like Halo came out in 2001.
I know, but that's still pretty recent.
It
That's the
is recent.
2000s.
Yeah, it is the 21st century, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Uh,
Like even Shamus is still relevant though. That's what I'm saying. It's a modern. Because think about it. You look at you mentioned Mickey Mouse, right? Mickey Mouse is based off of like old school animated tunes, right? Um, and then you look at Superman, based off the classic carnival strongman, right? Spider Man, a guy in a spandex suit. He was created in the 50s, 60s, right? The 60s.
yeah.
So that's like pre all this stuff, right? But then when you get into the 80s, right? Who comes to mind? Like you still have those characters, but now you have like a Shamus, like your Metroid, right? And it was impressive because you have mech armor, and that wasn't a thing prior to the what 85. I don't, you know what I
Well, I
mean?
know.
Like
What I'm saying
it's like
is,
so that's a new iconography. Is just in general the mech suit, right? The
I
mechanized
get
suit.
that. What I'm saying
So
is
then you
that
have
do we
characters
have
that fit
that
that
for
iconography
do we have that for
for
20
current day, I
like
guess 2020.
yeah, like 2020, like would
So
you
20
say
20
like
so
is
20 2000 and forward. Is that like
well
is that what you mean?
I I mean I would say like yeah, I guess 2000 well 20 I guess
That's what I'm
2020.
saying. Like, is it about? Because I'm looking at more or less what's relevant, right? Like Superman is still relevant. Sonic, right? That's
Right,
like
but I'm saying are do you
big,
think there are any new brand new
like brand new.
characters or IPs
I
that you
don't
think
I
would
don't
be
know. Nothing. If like
that would
brand
be
new, probably not because to become, in my opinion, iconic, it a it has to do two things. I think it has to. reference the past in a way that is unexpected but also appreciated, I guess, by a general audience,
Yeah,
and then also be something new that you've never really experienced before, but becomes accepted by general audiences, right? Like I said, like the mech suit, the idea of the mech suit, I don't know where it started, but I know like Metroid was a big deal because of that, right? And then Halo comes along, and it's kind of similar, and then you got certain animes, like the giant robot phase, right? And a
yeah,
lot of animes that were, and for that goes back to the '60s with Johnny Sacco and all that kind of stuff, Giant Robo,
hmm,
the Big O, you know what I mean? Then Voltron, right? So but what's become iconic out of that group? Voltron. Voltron is iconic, right? He represents the quintessential giant robot, right? With people inside control. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
when you think giant robots, that's probably one of the first things you
Yeah,
think of.
Voltron,
Then
Power
then
Rangers.
the Power Rangers, right? They become iconic, just as a concept, right? The whole
Yeah,
super powered fighting team in space with their own special ships or mechs, or right. And then the idea of combining, that's iconographic, right? The
yeah,
two combine, right? It's been parodied and made fun of. And that's another part of that iconography. What makes a character iconic is when it gets parodied, right?
well,
you
I mean
know,
that's
and,
true.
and,
Yeah,
like it gets parodied a lot, right? Because it's iconic. So like the Matrix, Neo. Uh, that's 2000. That's like 2001, I think, right? 2000, 2001, when the Matrix came out, and so he's an iconic character. You know, he's live action, but he's still iconic, right?
yeah,
You see a guy in all black trench coat, shades, you think Neo,
yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you think the
But I'm
Matrix.
just saying,
Even the
like,
term the Matrix has become iconographic on its own as a term, right? We understand when someone says, "Oh, he's still in the Matrix," we automatically understand what that means. We understand, oh, he's delusional. He doesn't see the truth. He doesn't see reality. He's, right? That like or and being red pilled, another piece of iconography, right? So I think the Matrix itself, um, definitely as a movie franchise, right? Bullet Time, right? That's another.
yeah.
So
But
yeah,
the Matrix isn't
that's some
really
more
considered
recent.
new
You talked about.
anymore.
No, but
That's
it's
what.
it's still in the 2000s. Is what I'm saying. Like you were saying,
Oh,
the
yeah.
2000 forward. That's something that is incredibly
Well,
iconic. Is the movie itself, then terms from the movie, right?
I'm yeah. I'm
Like
more thinking
red
of
pill,
something
blue pill.
within the past. I guess I'll say 10 years.
Well, in
So
10 years,
between,
I don't know.
that's what I mean though. It's like between now and I'll say 2015.
2014.
Yeah, 2014. Yeah, I said 10 years.
Um, I, I don't know. 2014.
You know what I mean? Like
What what
obviously we've
what
had like
what new has come out since 2014? Like so far as like something we've never seen before, or something. Oh, I know. Because I keep thinking in terms of like sci-fi and animation, but Breaking Bad, right? Walter White, Heisenberg, he's become
that's
iconic,
true.
and that's pretty recent. So
That's
yeah,
true.
there's some iconic characters. Definitely Walter White. The term Breaking Bad is you know we understand that what that means now intuitively because of that show. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely Walter White. Um, I think hmm, that's how it really comes to my mind right now. I mean, I guess you could say I don't know how long has One Piece been out.
One Piece came out also in literally I think 1999. I could be wrong. I want to say
Oh, okay, I was gonna say Luffy's become pretty iconic.
1997.
Okay, but I'm just saying like current day, definitely Luffy,
I
um,
agree, but
Naruto,
the series
Naruto's
originated in
like Naruto.
1999.
You got the anime run, like he popularized that. That whole anime run, right? So that's iconic,
Well,
and that's
Na-
I mean when did Naruto
Naruto.
come out?
Naruto. I mean, the same thing. Naruto came out
The
around the
late
same
nineties.
time, 97. That
Okay,
was the original one for the manga was 1999. Excuse me.
okay, that's
That's what I
pretty.
mean.
That's pretty. That's right at the edge of 2000. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
we're
just
talking
saying.
like 20, like the past 10
2014
years.
though. Yeah, that's Breaking
Like within
Bad.
the
I
past
can't.
10 years.
I can't think of.
And I'm not trying to say, oh, new things. I'm just, I just noticed a lot of, and I think it's a consequence of there being so many reboots. Is a lot of the stuff just seems to be uh, like rehashing and reboots of stuff from like mainly the 80s and the 70s, like
Well, that's true.
especially the 80s, as
So
opposed to like so like I like it's like, oh, here's more you know we've had like a reboot of Good Times. We've had a reboot of Thundercats. We've had a reboot of, uh, you know, Teen Titans. We've had, it's King Kong, Godzilla. All this stuff is it's been around for a while. Right? It's not a whole lot of, um, star like a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about has been has been
like
centered
old school.
around about reboots of old things. Right? You get what
Well,
I'm
that's
saying?
true. I mean, yeah, that's true. But yeah, you're right. I'm kind of hard. I mean, maybe I was gonna say Disney's Frozen seemed to have been like wildly popular. That song "Let It
Oh, that
Go."
that is true.
I think her name is Elsa or something like that, right? The lead, the
Yeah,
character.
that's like
So
on the cusp, like
that's
because that came
yeah,
out in 2013.
but it's still
I'll
something that
count it.
if someone it came out when?
2013.
Oh, really? That was 2013. Oh
Yeah,
wow, that was a lot newer than that. What about Pirates of the Caribbean? When did that come out? Like the first one?
Pirates of the Caribbean came out in I'm gonna say my computer's acting up today. I gotta Pirates of the Caribbean came out in
2014,
2003.
2003. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Still, that's 2000. So yeah, because I
yeah,
was
but
gonna
it's
say Jack
2003.
Sparrow. Jack Sparrow's iconic.
I agree, but that's 2003.
That's
Right?
true.
That's
I guess.
like 2000. That you have to understand, and I hate saying this, but 2003 at this point in time is old. It's
I
old.
know. I know it is, but it's just like
Like
20,
it doesn't
2014.
seem like
Yeah,
it,
all I can think of is
but it's
Breaking Bad.
it's old. Like the GameCube is now considered a retro console.
Oh well, I don't know about that.
What's that?
I was gonna say Get Out. When did that come out? That was like 2020, right?
Oh, that's
2021.
true.
I
I was
think
gonna
the idea
say
of the sunken place is what I was thinking of.
2017.
Okay,
2017.
yeah, 2017.
That's
Yeah,
true. I
that was,
guess
it's
it's
not
because
as
of that movie.
it's more specific to you know I guess black population. I hear a lot of black
Oh,
people
well, not
use that term.
necessarily,
So
because I mean, I think I'm pretty sure Get Out is the reason why we all say woke all of a sudden. Because I've never heard anybody.
oh, you think that movie is where the term became more popular, woke?
Yeah,
Because that woke was being used way before, but woke used to
are you?
mean something positive. It used to mean, oh, I'm woke, meaning, like I'm aware of the conspiracy happening, right? I'm hip to that, right? I know about, whatever the topic is. Like I know about it. Like
I
like
really
stay woke.
just I
Oh,
really just
somebody will say something and you be like, stay woke, like, and then it kind of became a gag, right? Like it was a meme. But yeah, then yeah, I would say post 2020, it became more derogatory. to refer to people who are basically
Maybe I'm just
who
not
are
hip.
still in the no,
Because
serious.
that
Like
is true.
woke used to be positive, and then right around 2020, it became a negative term in reference to people who were touting leftist politics, basically, right? But also who bought into uh, the the whole lockdown nonsense, all that stuff, And it's like, oh, these people are woke because they were generally the same people that used the term in reference to themselves that they were in fact woke. That's kind of the irony of the statement is that the
But
people that are called woke are the people that use it to refer to themselves as someone who is aware of the conspiracy, right? Whatever that happens to be. And then ironically, they're not. They're participating in it, but they're not aware of it.
yeah,
So they
yeah,
call themselves woke. And it's like, yeah, you're woke. And it became derogatory because it's like, yeah, you're woke because you are not aware. You think you are, but you're not. Like you're buying into the establishment narrative. So you're woke, right? As a derogatory statement, not as a affirmation of awareness. And
yeah,
so just that term woke is I think since 2014 became more used, right? It's a thing. So that's a piece
yeah. Because
I can.
I only mentioned that because I've only ever really heard it after the
Oh,
fact.
you know what else? Well, I don't know. I was gonna say the Minions, right?
Yeah,
Despicable
true.
Me. They're pretty.
Specifically.
I think in time they'll continue to be immediately recognizable, and that's another aspect of being iconic, right? It's immediately recognized, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that was 2010.
the Minions, the Despicable Me.
Despicable Me. Yeah.
Okay, when the first movie.
Yeah.
Okay, but when the Minions movie come out, they came
I
out
don't know. I
after
mean, the
2014.
Minions debuted in Despicable Me. Then.
I know, but I
I
would
mean, if you
say
want to
they
get technical, the
no, but
Minions,
they became iconic when you're making a movie about them, right?
sure, but they were
So,
already iconic because of the first movie, though.
well, I guess so. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say them making a movie
But to answer
on
your
them
question,
makes them iconic, or affirms it at least, right? But fair enough.
you also mentioned they were spoofs because ever since the Minions, everybody has to have their own version of the Minions, even if it doesn't need to, right? There's always the quirky
Right. Yeah, and that's
duplicate
another
hive
indication
mind
is being copied.
cartoony thing
Yeah, being
that's
parodied, being
that could
mimicked.
be make a
Yeah,
markable plushie.
that's a good point. Yeah, fair enough. All right. So yeah, I can't think of maybe when did Kung Fu Panda come out?
Kung Fu Panda, like same thing.
It
That
was
came
pre
out
2014.
2008.
Dang. I was gonna say Poe is
You're
pretty iconic.
old.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean,
I embrace my
yeah,
oldness.
yeah. I'm
Yeah, I don't know. Wreck It Ralph's not really iconic.
no, nobody cares about Wreck It Ralph. I'm gonna be real with you. Like,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
kind of.
dislike Wreck It Ralph.
I don't. Yeah, I actually like both movies. They were good.
I like the first movie. I don't really care about the second
The
movie. I
second one
don't
was okay.
dislike.
It wasn't as good as the first, but it was still good. It was entertaining. Um, it was kind of a rehash of the first anyway. But yeah, you're right. I can't think of 2014 and later. I have no
Yes.
idea. I don't. We already said Breaking Bad, Walter White.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. I will. I agree.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
nice.
It's not. It's just not there. Um,
It's insane.
yeah, you're right.
Like new. I mean, would you say? But I don't even think like. I don't even think Stranger Things. Like, would you say? Because Stranger Things,
Um,
in and of itself,
yeah,
is
I think
just
so. Just
it's the
because
Goonies.
it is, but right. Well, that's the point, right? It references the past, but then it
Yeah,
gives a new spin and does something new
that
with
is
it.
true. Yeah, you're
So,
okay.
so yeah, I would say so. Not necessarily any specific character though. I think the concept of Stranger Things is iconic. The idea of the upside down, I think that's iconic because now because it's become
I mean, I don't.
once again it's part of a lexicon now where you can make reference to it and people understand what you're talking about, right?
Well, here's
It's
the
like,
thing.
oh,
I
he's
don't
in
know
the
what you're
upside
talking
down. You
about.
don't? You never watched it?
No, I didn't watch Stranger
Oh,
Things.
okay. Well, that's unfortunate. You need to watch it. It's good, especially the
I mean,
first two seasons. It's actually decent, but
yeah, it looks
but
cool. I
yeah, I
mean,
think that's somewhat iconic,
I
especially
think I
the
like it.
font. The font used for it is like somewhat iconic. It's
I
not.
mean,
It's
isn't
not
that from
as.
It? It looks like the font they use for like Stephen
Is it
King
from it?
movies.
I don't know.
I could be
I mean,
wrong.
I think that's the point though, is that it
Yeah,
has that
I don't
eighties
think there's
that
anything wrong with
eighties
that.
look.
Like I said,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
know I definitely would say the Stranger Things is iconic, even though I haven't seen it. But I know a lot of people talk about it. I know it's referenced a lot.
yeah,
But it's also like,
yeah. I don't think there's very. I mean, have you seen BoJack Horseman?
yeah, I've seen a few episodes of it. You showed me a few episodes of
Yeah,
it.
that's pretty. That's since 2014, right? I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily iconic though. Uh, Definitely made a big impact. I mean, I thought the show was
Would
brilliant.
you? That was yeah, that was 2014,
Yeah.
2014 to 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
Would you? Would you say? Well, let me find out
But
when.
I wouldn't
Let me
say
find out when it came
like
out.
he's not on the level of Superman and all that stuff. So I would say like Walter White is close, just because I think a lot of people are aware of
No,
that
I
show.
would say Walter Wright is pretty
So
iconic.
yeah. So but yeah, what about games? Like, are there any games that are iconic or game characters like new? Since 2014, there aren't any.
Uh, I'm gonna be. I would say not on the level as like a Mario or a Sonic or a Master Chief. No.
Hmm, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, listen, it's not that there has to be one, right? But I think you're making a good point that since 2014 there hasn't been one,
Yeah, and I'm not.
and
I'm not saying that
at least
these
not
things
many,
are
not many.
bad, right? Because like there's shows that like regular show. I love regular show. I don't know how iconic it
Yeah,
is outside of
it's
you know
somewhat iconic.
the internet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
but
just because it's
that's a
popular
good
on the
point.
internet
Regular
doesn't
show,
mean
but
that
when did
it's
regular show come out?
came out in 2010.
Yeah, see, that's still prior to 2014.
True.
What has come out, and these are your rules. So
That the
has to be the last 10 years. So, and yeah, I agree. I can't think of anything. I don't know.
because that's usually how things go, right? It's like every 10 years, there's like this groundbreaking thing that's like, oh, that's gonna change. It usually like affects like the
Well, is
major
it
big
is it
guys.
every 10 years? I mean,
I would say so. Yeah.
I think well, definitely every yeah, I guess every 10. I mean, every maybe not exactly every 10 years, but like we mentioned, the Matrix is right at the end of the '90s, but it's not seen as a '90s thing per se, right? Because I
Uh,
think it came out in 1999.
it's seen as the beginning of the millennium,
Right, but that's what I'm saying. No, but no, we tend to
but it's
forget that it was like '99 that it came out, not 2000 something. That's my point. The
right.
rest
So
of the
it
movies
was a
came out in 2000,
culmination
but
of
yet,
like
but it's
all the
defined.
'90s tropes, but it has
Well,
that.
I don't know about that, but it was definitely something that's seen as a new millennium type of movie.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know. It
that's what I
felt
mean.
like
It's
watching it.
it's
It feels
it's
like
strongly associated with 2000s, not the '90s. Like it's not. No,
I
when you
think
say
I think
'90s, I don't think anyone thinks the Matrix.
no. I mean, to be honest, some of the dialogue feels very '90s. I know kung
Uh,
fu. I'm not
yeah,
saying it's a
I don't
bad
know if
thing.
that's '90s. It's just
Whoa, that's just
that's
what
not
they
even
say.
'90s. That's '80s.
What I know kung fu.
That's like no saying whoa. That's like Bill and Ted, and ironically,
Well, I mean Keanu
he was
Reeves.
he
Yeah,
was in
yeah,
that. Yeah, that's my
yeah,
point. So
yeah.
that's probably just
That's what I'm saying. It's more of a
a hat
Keanu
tip.
Reeves thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a hat tip to Bill and Ted. And just like regular shows, a reference to Bill and Ted also, right?
Yeah, I love the same, which is yeah.
That's so in a
It's like
sense
Bill
that
and
makes
Ted
it
taking it to its logical or
yeah
illogical
that makes it
extreme. Yeah,
iconic in that sense. It's referencing the past because Bill and Ted
yeah,
itself is also iconic, right? But
that's true. Yeah,
because then that's was influenced by Doctor Who, right? The whole phone booth time machine and all that. So
I never really drew that
that's
correlation. That's
iconic.
interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's fascinating, So, but yeah, like iconography in the way it's reused and reused over and over again, and you know, but iconic characters. Yeah, I'm hard pressed, man. Walter White's all I got. You know, unless someone else has an idea of something
Yeah,
that you
I'm
feel has
curious to
become
see
iconic.
what people consider like modern day iconic.
I,
Like,
I think I think in more of a negative way, there's certain things that are iconic, um, like like a Ray from Star Wars is iconic, but in a bad way, right? She's the quintessential Mary Sue character.
well, I don't know if infamous could be conflated with iconic though.
It can be, yeah. You can, Al Capone was iconic gangster.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there's probably more iconic negatives uh, in the last 10 years than positives.
Hmm.
you know, like real or fiction. I think there probably are
Yeah, that's true.
things that will look back in another 10 years ago. Man, like that's a thing now, like that term, or you know.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, but yeah, you make a good point.
Yeah. Like
And
I
what does that
said,
what does that say
things
about
take time.
the entertainment landscape, right? If we can't think of like we can't, but you know, hopefully others can. Even after this live stream, if you're watching, let us know in the
Yeah.
comments if you can think
Hey,
of
I only bring
any
that up
characters that you
because
consider to be iconic, like on the level of a Sonic or a Mario
yeah,
or a Mickey
I
Mouse.
only yeah, I only bring that up just because I think literally was it yesterday. Um, I was watching a trailer for Street Fighter 6, and like everybody, everybody was super excited. I mean, if you're a fighting game fan, you know what I'm talking about. To see Terry Bogart in a mainline Street Fighter game. Terry Bogart's from King of Fighters,
Hmm.
and if you know anything about the '90s arcade rivalry between SNK and Capcom, and the whole SNK uh, versus Capcom game, it's all that stuff. So I was like, yeah, this is a big deal. Like literally, no, I feel like less people cared about the returning Street Fighter characters, and everybody was just focused on, oh, Terry and Maya are an official Street Fighter game. This is crazy. Terry is from for all intents and purposes, a Street Fighter knockoff from 1992, right?
Yeah,
But that's the thing, though. It's like nobody is excited. Like it's like I don't know. It's like it's like it's just one of those things where it is other stuff that really got me thinking about it. But it's like, yeah, this is a character. This is a like, and he's only really iconic if in like the video game fighting, especially like the fighting game community. But it got
hmm
me thinking to like I can't. What other? I feel like no other character would generate that type of hype in a video game, right? Or at least in like a fighting game. Like even when this is another new fighting game called EX Layer that came out, It's not new. New. It came out EX. When did EX there came out? Came out in uh yeah 2017.
Hmm.
And what got a lot of people hyped for it was they stuck Terry Bogard in it. Everyone's like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but it has all. But look at these new, look at all these new fighters, and it's like, oh no, it's Terry. There he is. So and he's a guest character in that too. But yeah, it's like the same thing. You know, we watched the Smash Brothers trailers. Everybody freaks out. I mean, Smash Brothers kind of like yeah, Smash Brothers. Most people were excited for characters like Terry and Sephiroth, right? I mean, I showed you the trailers for that, and it's
Yeah.
insane. But like nobody was really excited for like, oh, it's the new Fire Emblem character in Smash Brothers. Yay! You know, it's like
Yeah.
so. It's just stuff like that got me thinking about it, and other stuff as well. Movies, like all the recent movies we've seen. It's like I said, it's reboots of old stuff. It's continuations of
Yeah.
relatively old stuff.
That's true.
Um, and obviously, you know, I'm not really the type of person that keeps up with every single thing that's popular. I'm just not. That's just not how I am. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in agreement. Like it's just hard to keep up anyway.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing. I don't want to. That's not why I guess consume media. Like I consume media if it's stuff that I know I'm gonna like. If I don't think I'm gonna like it, then I just
Yeah.
don't
No waste of
pay
time.
attention to it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, if it's that's why it doesn't bother me that because people make fun of me all the time. It's like, oh man, you're like an old man because you watch and listen to stuff from the '70s, and it's
You
just
watch
like,
old man stuff. Yeah.
yeah, but it's just like okay, but if it holds up, because I don't watch stuff for the sake of it being old. I watch it if it's good, right?
Right. Right.
You know, and
Yeah. That's
like I
yeah.
said, we live in a day and age where you don't, where all generations of media can be found on the internet. So it's like, why limit yourself to just, you know,
Just current day.
current day? Why limit
Yeah.
yourself to just American shows? You know?
Right. And some are picking up on that trend because you're not the only one that likes going back to the older stuff. And
Yeah, a lot of people
Me
are.
TV is putting out their own you know uh, cartoon channel, basically in the spirit of Boomerang, right? The old
Mhm.
Boomerang channel from Cartoon Network. They're doing their own and nothing but classic cartoons. 60s, 70s, 80s, right? And 90s, of course. They're gonna have some newer stuff as well. But yeah, it's like because they see the writing on the wall that people are going back and they're revisiting some of these old school properties, and enjoying them because and I think a big part of it is the lack of compelling current day content, meaning a lot of stuff are like you mentioned, they're reboots and rehashes of the same IP. It's like, especially when, like, we started off talking about the Acolyte, when it's being presented in such a subpar fashion, right? Like we're not getting anything refreshing or new in the sense that it's good, right? We're getting new things, right? They're definitely doing new stuff, right? The
Yeah.
emphasis on, the gay agenda and things like that, and the patriarchy and all this other nonsense. It's like, yeah, they're giving us something new, I guess, but it's something that no one wants, and it's not compelling, and it's not interesting, and it's not even being presented in a compelling or interesting way. So people are picking up on that, and they're saying, you know what? I'd rather just watch Cheers. I'd rather just go back and watch the OG Star Wars. even the prequels, right? I'd rather just go back and watch those and enjoy those, right? I'd rather go back and watch some of these old TV shows and movies because they were good. They entertained me. They did what I wanted them to do. And current compared to current day, right? They're superior. And it has nothing to do, like you said, it has nothing to do with um, like being a boomer or something, right? I'm
Yeah.
tired of this new stuff. It's like no, younger people like yourself and others um, are realizing, hey, compared to current day, this older stuff is really good. It's better. It's superior, and more and more people are realizing that, and it's become more accessible, of course. So thanks to streaming. So yeah, that's going to be a major trend going forward. I think not just with animation with the Me TV, but we've already Me TV exists because people want to watch old school shows, and they got clever with it. They did a couple of shows
Yeah.
that have a lot of old school actors and actresses, right? Which is clever. So they're new shows, right? But they have your favorite, like Betty White. I forgot. I think it's called Hot in Cleveland, right? She was in that, and it's like, yeah, because people love Betty White, right? She was great in the Golden Girls, and all that stuff, right? So let's put her in a new
Yeah.
show, right? But she's a classic TV star, right? And others as well. But you understand, like that's smart, and we'll probably see more of that also. Where you'll see some classic favorites, right? Favorite TV people in a new show, right? A relatively newer show. Um, and that's nothing new necessarily, but we'll probably see more of that because people just want to see their
Hmm.
favorite guy or gal, you know, because they're great, they're lovable, they're likable, they're iconic, like Betty White, right? She's become iconic, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that should be interesting to see kind of how it plays out. Um, because I think a lot of stuff that's coming out, it's not based on market demand. It's based on, like I said, a lot of it's ideologically driven, you know, and it fits a certain narrative. Therefore, let's produce it. I think that's happening even in the animation space. Also, like with Netflix, they're putting a lot of money in animation, which is nice. But you know, we'll see. There's a lot of titles that they presented for the coming lineup in like 2025. And I'm kind of giving it the side eye, like, all right, we'll see what that's all about, right? Because if it you know, I get a
Yeah.
sense that a lot of it is kind of virtue signaling type stuff, and it's like nobody wants virtue signaling. We just want great stories, great animation, great stories, great characters to just like Arcane is a great example of that, right? They gave us a compelling first season, right? And you know it's really good, right? The writing is great, the animation is beautiful, right? The
Hmm.
production quality is there, and it's like it's wildly popular, and for good reason because they gave us something good, right? And so now it's second season's coming out. Hopefully, it'll continue to be good. I hope so. I hope they don't try to start getting into you know preachy. It was for me. It was borderline already in the first season with the DEI kind of. But I'm like, well, this is a whole new world. You know, these are the rules of this world. This is so you just got to get immersed in it, and I can accept that. But hopefully, it sometimes people they find lightning in a bottle, then they let it out without realizing it. So so I hope they don't do that.
Like,
I hope they continue to contain that lightning and give us even better stories and better season two. So we'll see, right? But yeah, that's one of the rare occasions where it's like, yeah, they gave us something good and entertaining, right? Um, so I'm hopeful, but yeah, a lot of it is just subsidized because
mhm.
of ideological reasons. It's not necessarily like the market, like where people are like, yeah, people want this. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, people want more adult animation. Yes, they do. In general, people want more animation, but it's also they want a certain type of animation. They want animation that's good. They want animation that's compelling and that tells great stories, right? So we'll see, because some of the stuff that uh,
Hmm.
get a lot of accolades from their the industry. In reality, it's like no one's watching that. Like no one's really tuning in. It's not really making the impact that your peers claim it's making. And I've seen that a lot in some of these spaces. Animators I
Right.
follow, projects and everything. It's like they'll put out. Maybe we can talk about that more specifically next time. But where it's like something that get released on
Hmm.
Netflix or some other streaming, and it's like, oh, this is amazing, but it's like it's their peers, it's other animators, producers, directors saying this, not the audience, right? There's crickets. Like I don't see anyone posting about it.
Mm.
No one's commenting on anywhere on social media. No one's mentioning it except industry people. And I've noticed that with certain titles released, you know, recent years, like I said, through Netflix and Amazon and stuff. And it's like, and then all of a sudden it gets made, then nothing gets made after that. Like nothing happens after that. There's no follow up, there's no sequel, there's no season two. And you realize, okay,
Hmm.
despite all the
Yeah.
accolades, and sometimes they win awards. They'll win an award at some animation
You
festival
lied
or
to
like
us.
Grant, Emmy or whatever, and it's like okay, but it's like crickets from just regular people. Like no one's talking about it. So I'm like, okay, so the industry is patting each other on the back, and slapping high fives for this project, but then in reality, the audience isn't there, right? No one cares about it, you know, and that's something I've noticed, and I'm kind of like, yeah,
Right.
because it's like I said, the projects are just being subsidized, like they're just doling out the money for it because it follows a certain agenda, right? So because it fits into that agenda, we'll produce it, you know, and
Hmm.
that's the wrong way to go. That's because that doesn't play into your audience, right? It plays into something else, right? And like I said, because the industry itself is generally leans more liberal, they tend
Right.
to just congratulate, yeah, 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 right? Plus, as a rule, you know, you're gonna support your peers. You're gonna support if you're an animator or producer or director or writer, and you got a buddy who's also that, and he's got this project and it got funded and it's going to be produced and put out there into the wild, right? You're going to applaud, you're going to be happy for him, right? You're not going to be like, you know what, maybe you shouldn't have did that, like you're not, you're just going to say, hey, congratulations, man, because
Hmm.
it's hard out here, you know and that's a big part of it too. It's like the industry congratulates itself because they know it's hard, right? So they're going to be positive. Generally, they're not going to necessarily critique their peers, right? Because A, you want to be supportive, and B, you don't want to receive that critique in return, right? You want others to do the same to promote your stuff, and so that's understandable. But it kind of feeds into an echo chamber where, because I'm looking at some of these properties, I'm like, okay, all these rant and raves, and this goes even with reviewers, like some of the entertainment, like I said, Rotten Tomatoes. It's kind of the same thing because if I don't give a good review, you
It,
may
it
not
feels like the whole.
invite me to that press junket
Mhm.
the next time. You won't look to me for that. To come to that. Give me that free access to the screening and et cetera, et cetera. Right. So it's a
Yeah.
whole kind of echo chamber that's happening. So
Yeah. It feels
I
like
don't know.
that whole echo chamber issue you brought up. It feels more like a more recent issue, just because I would, I would,
Well, it's not really
you look at
recent.
stuff from
It's
like,
been going
especially
on
like
for years.
the. I only say that just because there seems to be. I know it's when I say recent, I don't mean like 10 years ago. I mean like I'll say like 30 years ago.
No, it's
But
it's it's
it
as old
feels
as
like when you
time.
look at stuff from like
It's
the
a
the
common thing in
80s,
any
the
industry.
'70s, and the '80s.
Yeah.
Well, I only say that just because there was a lot more variety of ideas and just being put out in movies back in the day. Um, you know,
Well,
you
yeah.
had
I mean, it's that that
I
doesn't.
guess to
You're right.
as
There were better
as
movies
an
made,
example, you had a
but
lot.
a lot of what?
Well, I'm not just saying that's better, but like when I say ideas, I mean like you know, you brought up the whole dominated by liberal, which is true, but like even back in the day, for every mash, you also had like a Dirty Harry, for example, right? Like Dirty Harry isn't really considered a very, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I get that, but what I'm saying is the idea of industry members, pros, who are just kind of patting each other on the back. They're not overly critical of each other. That's just par for the course. That's been going on for like I've seen it in my as a working as a graphic designer, as a web designer, as you
Yeah.
know, it's like, and even I've even worked in entertainment shortly, but and it's like, yeah, you're not really gonna, at least not openly, you're not gonna criticize your peers like harshly or at all. Like it's just something you don't do. You're always positive and congratulatory because you want to be like you understand that it's hard to do these things to get a project made, et cetera, right? So you're not gonna go, hey man, you should have did this, or, maybe behind closed doors you might, but openly you're not. So, but that's, I'm just saying that's just part of most industries. Like you're not gonna openly, publicly like bash a movie. If
Yeah.
like if you're an actor, right? You're especially if you're a pretty well known actor, like you're known in the either in the business or just by the general public or both. You're probably not gonna come out and just start like harshly criticizing you know a production. You know what I mean? Just because you don't agree with it ideologically, right? It's rare that's going to happen. You know. Now, some people have done it in the
Mm.
past, in the recent past, even like with John Boyega, right? But he did that after the fact, right? After he was part of the Star Wars, phenomenon, right? Those movies. Then he went back, was like, yeah, they really didn't
Yeah.
treat me. And he was just making his case, right, for whatever purposes, maybe for more money to sue or But you understand, like that didn't necessarily blacklist him, so to speak, right? Um, but it was unusual and it was rare, right? It's like that doesn't happen a lot. The same thing with I forgot this man, Ray. I can't remember his last name. The guy that played Cyborg in the Justice League movies. He put out some comments as well, criticizing, but that was once again after the fact.
Oh, okay.
After the production, after the release. About his treatment and things like that. So that's all I'm saying. It's just not something that's done, especially prior to release or at release, but maybe like much later, someone might say,
Hmm.
"Hey, congrats, like this movie wasn't what I hoped it would be," or "Oh, it didn't do too well because," and even then, just and this is just from what I've observed, it's not going to be overly harsh, right? They're not going to be blatantly honest, right? They're going to be tactful, right? So, and I'm just saying that feeds into what we're seeing with things like what's going on with the IP, the Star Wars IP, and the Marvel, and where it's like, yeah, you have the DEI funding and all that stuff that drives the upper echelon to say, well, we need check boxes, right? But then those on the lower echelon, who are the producers and the directors, the writers, etc., and they're making the choices, they're ideologically driven, but then their peers are also. So no one's
Hmm.
like in their circle telling them you shouldn't do this. And then when there is criticism, they're reinforcing. the false notion that, oh, they're just racist or sexist, or right. It's being reinforced within their circle, right? And so it's this echo chamber
Yeah.
that allows them to just comfortably kind of just stay in their ideological space and continue to put out that message, right? The message, and not feel any qualms about it, right? Um,
Mm.
because no one close to them is telling them, hey, maybe you should tone it down. Maybe, right? No one's really telling them that, right? Um, so, and then everyone, when they do hear it, it's coming from way outside their circles, right? It's coming from fans, it's coming from social media, independent press, things like that. It's just like when you read about an explosion in Bangkok somewhere, you know what I mean? Like you'll go, oh, that's
Mm.
terrible. But beyond that, it's like, okay, I'm way over here in the United States. It doesn't affect
Yeah,
you
I
really,
see.
right? It's like, and that's kind of how it is. Like it's so far removed from their inner circle, their sphere, right? It- you know, like I said, it's an echo chamber. So they're not gonna
Mm.
they hear it, but they don't care because it doesn't really affect them. They got paid, they made their project, they're gonna move on to another project, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. Um, and it just keeps happening over and over, you know, because no one wants to accept the reality, like just like we talked about uh, recently with the gentleman from Pixar, right? And he finally admitted, yeah, we probably went too hard with some of these things, right? We didn't intend to, like that's how he put it, you know, and maybe he didn't, right? But
Hmm.
there it is. Right? You did. You went too far, right? You overemphasized the DEI versus the story, right? And so he tepidly admitted that that's fine, but it's after the fact. He's already retired and moved on. You see what I'm saying? Like he's not gonna say something while he's
Yeah.
working and the project's about to be released. Like it's just something you don't do. So so yeah, it's like that's and even then, like I said, even his criticism was so you know soft shoe, right? It's like no one's gonna. It's like we can read between the lines and understand like he's just affirming what a lot of people have been saying on the outside, right? A lot of YouTubers, a lot of critics, etc. Um, he's just affirming it, even though
Hmm.
he's not like going hard in the paint, right? You know, um, but he is affirming
Yeah.
it in his own way, you know, and but it's after the fact, right? There's no blowback for him. He's already done. He's doing his own independent stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not worried about not getting hired again or something. So that's I think that's just kind of how it is.
Right.
But I think the key is independent media. Support independent content creators and look for it. I think it needs to become um, a regular sort of thing that most people do, right? That just regular, what we call normies, right? Just regular people just start doing that, just looking for content, right? Independent movies and shows and music and games, comics, books, because it's out there, and our desires to create something that entertains you and allows you to escape, if it's fiction, of course, to escape into something awesome and be inspired. So, you know, but yeah, let's call it a day. It's 12:45 Pacific Standard Time. So, thanks for tuning in. Those that tuned in, um, those who are watching after, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Check out our website, supergalacticfantastic.com. Get acquainted with our IP and our characters and our world. And we got something coming up soon later this year. We're working on some great art, and we're refining our script. And we hope you guys will love it. So please support us. And thanks for checking us out.
We'll see you around.